We're going to start in the AFC with weaknesses. What is the biggest weakness of all the teams in the AFC? We're going to start with the bottom and go to the top. So we're starting with the Miami Dolphins. What is the Dolphins' biggest weakness? Major limitations at quarterback. It's going to be Skylar Thompson on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. Skylar Thompson, I believe, has yet to throw for 200 yards in multiple appearances this season. He struggled mightily, albeit against a very good Jets defense, but he scored 9 points. They got a late safety at the end to get to above double digits. But this is an offense that, despite all the playmakers, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, Kendrick Wilson, Sherfield, a really good running game, C.J. Mostert, good offensive line. Like, that's kind of what they're going to have to rely on. If Buffalo takes them out of running the football, which, by the way, they weren't able to do last time, and they had to win a walk-off field goal to just escape by Miami. But if Miami has to rely on Skylar Thompson, it's just not going to work. They're extremely limited. So the Dolphins' biggest weakness is major limitations at quarterback. For the Baltimore Ravens, they can't function offensively without Lamar Jackson, and that is a fact. It's backed up by the numbers. It's backed up by your eyes. Okay, as I mentioned earlier in the show, with Lamar Jackson, 28 points a game. Without him, 20. Yards per game, 384. Without him, 337. QBR with Lamar Jackson, 64. Without him, 48. They can't move the ball, and it's going to be Anthony Brown at quarterback against the Bengals. It's going to be a similar situation to the Dolphins. We've got a third-string guy. You're going to rely on the running game. The defense is probably going to have to score a touchdown, whether it be a pick six or a scoop and score, whatever the case may be. Baltimore can't move the ball down the field. They don't have a playmaker at quarterback, and even if they had a solid backup, they don't have any weapons, and so that's going to play them in the long run. For the Los Angeles Chargers, it is quite simple as it gets. Brandon Staley. It's that simple. It's Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley is the biggest weakness of the Los Angeles Chargers. They've got just about everything you could want in a Super Bowl roster. They've got the elite quarterback. They've got a good running back. Solid offensive line. It's improved. It's got a little bit of chemistry after some of the injuries earlier in the season. Plenty of weapons. Great playmakers on defense. Special teams is good. Situationally, oh gosh, do they leave a lot to be desired. Last year, this year, and going into a game, I'm about to get to the Jaguars in my next one, going into a game against Jacksonville where Doug Peterson's been there and done that. He's won a Super Bowl. Okay, this is an inexperienced Jags roster. This is an equally inexperienced Chargers roster. And so in that situation, you're probably going to lean with the coach to be good if the game is close late, which I think we'd be surprised if it wasn't. Brandon Staley, simply put, is the biggest limitation of the Los Angeles Chargers because of his very questionable late game decision making as a coach. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the more surprising playoff teams, struggles in close games due to youth and inexperience. The Jaguars this season played 14 one-score games, and they were 6-8. Now, they were better late in season in close games, such as the game against Dallas and against Tennessee. But they kind of have to beat you badly. By the way, they faced the Chargers all the way back in Week 3, destroyed them at SoFi Stadium. They kind of have to get out to a lead early, hold the lead late, make sure that their defense gets a couple of turnovers. This is a team, again, young teams tend to struggle late in game. Like, it is what it is. This is a very young roster. It's a future superstar quarterback who is in his second year, okay, who does occasionally make those young player mistakes. But for every mistake he makes a out of this world throw, an out of this world play with his arm and sometimes with his legs. This is a Jags team that can win a playoff game, but they're too young. And I think that's what's going to hurt them in the long run. By the way, for what it's worth, the youngest roster in the NFL. They're going to struggle in close games. And in the playoffs, you got to win them. And so I think that's what's going to play Jacksonville and cost them in the long run. To number 3, the Cincinnati Bengals, the 3 seed. What's their biggest weakness? If they can't generate pressure, their secondary is toast. They struggle in the pass defense. They've got a good pass rush, guys like Hubbard, Hendrickson, plenty of guys in between, guys like Reeder. But if they're not able to generate any pressure whatsoever on the quarterback, their secondary gets burnt consistently. You look at last year, the postseason against Matthew Stafford. They could not generate pressure on him late. What happened? Cooper Kupp went off against the likes of Eli Apple and against their other corners that they have. Chidobe Awuzie. Nice players they have, but not guys. I think Awuzie, by the way, might be out for the season. not corners that are going to just lock up your number one receivers. The secondary to me is what's going to cost Cincinnati in the long run. They've got all the pieces offensively. I'm a little bit concerned about their injuries to their offensive line. Lyle Collins, Alex Kappa. But I think Joe Burrow, listen, he got the team to the Super Bowl last year with a horrendous offensive line, and their weapons are just that much better this year with the addition of Hayden Hurst. Joe Mixon's had a great year. Their front seven is good, but if they're not, the back half of their defense is really bad and tends to struggle. And in this AFC with a lot of elite quarterbacks, it can't happen. So that's the Cincinnati Bengals' biggest weakness. For the Buffalo Bills, their biggest weakness, way too Josh Allen reliant. You look at the Bills' 100-yard rushing games this season. How many of those games this year have been because Josh Allen ran for 40, 50, 70, 80 yards? I've been critical of the Bills on this all season long. If Josh Allen isn't a factor running the football, they cannot run the football whatsoever. And so you see late in these games with an offensive line that leaves much to be desired. Despite having some solid pieces, they have Dalvin Cook's little brother. I think James Cook is his name. You've got Devin Singletary. That Naheem Hines, who returned a couple of kicks for touchdowns. He's not really a between the tackles type of guy. But if you're in a position where you've got a 4-point lead, 5 minutes left, you've got to have that run game to be able to milk the clock and not have to take shots down the field or even, get little passes in the screen game. They're going to have to rely on Josh Allen to throw the ball 35, 45 times and run the ball 10 to 12 times a game on design plays. That is going to hurt the Buffalo Bills in the long run. It's why I still today don't see them winning the AFC. That's the Bills' biggest weakness. For the number one seed in the AFC, they do not have to play this weekend. The Chiefs' biggest weakness, pass defense gets torched against elite quarterbacks. You look at the season when the Chiefs played Tom Brady, their defense was awful. Look at when they played Josh Allen, their defense struggled late in the game, particularly in the second half. You look at when they faced Justin Herbert twice, 300-yard passing games. Joe Burrow, to use the name of the show, carved that defense up. Anytime that they have faced an elite quarterback this season, they have struggled mightily. We know what Patrick Mahomes is, what he represents. He's, I'd say, second to Lamar Jackson this year. Has made something of nothing considering what he's been given. We know Travis Kelce is the best tight end in football, hands down, no questions asked. But if Travis Kelce isn't getting open consistently, you're relying on Justin Watson. You're relying on Juju Smith-Schuster, who's solid, but he's not a number one. You're relying on Sky Moore, possibly Pacheco. Not a lot of great weapons. But Patrick Mahomes has made it work this year because he's Patrick Mahomes. It's because Andy Reid is Andy Reid. But defensively, anytime they face an elite quarterback, which, as I said, the AFC is full of them, they might have to win some 38-35 type shootouts or 34-31 type shootouts in order to make a Super Bowl run. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.